Officials Zhang Yongsil and Yi exchanged shocked glances. Their eyes widened in disbelief as the crown prince handed them a set of math problems. Then it was official Jung In-ji's turn. He clearly looked worried. Nervously he asked, "What is this?" Hyang smiled and replied, "Just a few simple questions. Please solve them first." But in reality, the problems were far from simple. Even though these officials were considered some of the best mathematicians in the Eastern Palace, they had to rack their brains to find the answers. Official Yi Cheon was completely stumped when he reached a problem about calculating the area of a piece of land. Meanwhile, official Zhang Yongsil held his head in his hands, wishing he had brought his counting sticks with him. A moment later, Hyang was speechless as he looked at their test results. In his thoughts, he muttered, "This is kinda sad. The highest score is only 70? I really need to introduce Arabic numerals. They need to learn proper math too, but I'm too busy to teach them myself. What should I do?" That's when the crown prince had a brilliant idea and began formulating a plan. If that's the case, I'll have to find some Muslim mathematicians. 1 month later, in the king's council hall, Hyang had just completed the pendulum clock he designed himself. Proudly, the crown prince presented it to the king, asking him and the ministers to examine his invention. The officials were stunned by this groundbreaking creation. With a confident smile, the crown prince pointed at the clock and declared, "This is a new kind of clock to replace the water clocks. It won't just be placed in the palace, it'll also be installed in the offices of the 6 ministries. That way, everyone in Joseon will know the time." The king stepped closer to the clock, beaming. "Really?" he said enthusiastically. He immediately ordered the Minister of Public Works to install the new clocks throughout the palace and ministries. "Do it right away," he commanded. The Minister of Public Works responded loudly, "Yes, Your Majesty." The other ministers who witnessed the moment were overjoyed, whispering among themselves, "The Crown Prince has created another amazing invention. As expected from His Highness, life will be so much easier now." But this was only the beginning of a nightmare. After some time using the new clocks, the ministers, still unfamiliar with the modern time system, began arriving late to their meetings at the king's council hall. The king was growing increasingly frustrated. When they finally showed up, the king pointed at the clock and asked, "Ministers of Personnel and Taxation, what time is it?" Neither minister had expected to keep the king waiting. On the verge of tears, they bowed and apologized. "Forgive us, Your Majesty. We miscalculated the time." In another scene, at the Ministry of Rights, the head of the ministry was fuming. "Why isn't the task I gave you finished yet?" His subordinate bowed his head. "Please, I just need a little more time." A short while later, the head of the Ministry of Rights began ranting. "Still not done? Didn't you say it would be finished by 5 p.m.? The subordinate didn't dare to answer. He could only apologize again. "I sincerely apologize, sir." At the Ministry of Public Works, the situation was just as tense. The head was furious, yelling at his staff. "When will this report be ready?" Terrified, one of them responded, "If you allow it, sir, we'll work until 7 p.m. to finish it." The ministry head glared at his subordinate and raised his voice sharply. "Just to finish this? It's only 7 in the morning. Are you all planning to slack off?" The subordinate quickly replied, "Of course not, sir." But the ministry head simply scoffed coldly. "You're all graduates of the Royal Academy, and this is the best you can do. Pathetic." Meanwhile, in a small tavern near the Eastern Palace, the common folk were in an uproar. "Damn this cursed world! Who came up with this weird clock?" a man shouted in frustration. "I'll find them and smash their head in." Another customer chimed in. "It must have been the Minister of Public Works. Useless. I want to quit my job because of that clock." Elsewhere in the palace, the king was strolling with the crown prince. Cheerfully he said, "Thank you, Hyang." The crown prince looked puzzled. "For what, father?" The king smiled warmly. "Thanks to you, the palace feels more alive. We're no longer wasting time like we used to." Hyang smiled modestly. "You give me too much credit, father. I just want to help. I'll keep working hard and bring even more useful things." The king chuckled and patted his son's head. "You're too humble. I'm proud to have a son like you." Then the king asked, "Is there anything else you need for making your strange inventions?" Hyang let out a mischievous laugh. "Actually, there is something I really need." The king raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Really? What is it?" Hyang calmly replied, "I just need a small independent office." The king was taken aback. "An independent office?" Hyang nodded with hopeful eyes. "Yes, father. I need a dedicated space to focus on my research. When I was building the clock, I faced a lot of problems. The room was too cramped. My work table was covered in blueprints and clock parts. I even had to eat on the floor." The king looked hesitant. "But building an entirely new building might be a bit wasteful," King Sejong replied. Like a child throwing a tantrum, Hyang blurted out, "If I had my own space, I could make even more inventions." The king finally relented. All right, I get it. It's too soon to make a decision now, so I'll give you an answer after I discuss it with the ministers." 5 days later, the Joseon Institute of Science and Technology Development was officially established. The ministers were speechless when they visited the site. As they entered the tiny building, a cold breeze passed through the room, which was barely a few square meters in size. One of the ministers whispered, "Is this seriously a government office? This building's smaller than a closet." Though a bit disappointed, the Crown Prince encouraged himself. We may be starting small, but the results will be big, I guarantee it. No one will look down on us. Standing beside him, official Yung Cho just stared blankly, eyes vacant. Then one of the officials asked, "So, what exactly are we supposed to do here?" Hyang smiled. "Good question. First, come in," said the Crown Prince. Then he revealed a diagram of the Institute's structure. Proudly, he explained, "This is the organizational chart of our research institute. We'll conduct scientific and technical research to make our nation stronger and more prosperous. First, we have the Department of Basic Science and Technology Development, which will focus on the foundations of science and tech. Let's call it the Basic Department. The second is the Department of Applied Science and Technology Development, which will be in charge of turning our research into practical use in everyday life. We'll call this one the Applied Department," Hyang said confidently. The ministers began to nod in admiration, slowly grasping the revolutionary ideas presented by the Crown Prince. Hyang then appointed key officials to lead each department. Officials Jung In-ji and the Minister of Public Works, you'll be assigned to the Basic Department. Official Yi Cheon will be with the Applied Department. Official Jang will be in charge of military equipment and coordinating craftsmen from different ministries to support our research. Hyang smiled and quickly added, "The Basic Department will use mathematics to study areas like metallurgy, chemistry, architecture, and more. Meanwhile, the Applied Department will take those research results and develop them into practical solutions," Hyang continued. The officials still looked uncertain. "But aren't metallurgy and architecture academic fields too?" one of them asked. "Of course," Hyang replied enthusiastically. "Only by fully understanding the theory can we come up with more innovative ideas." He looked at each official, one by one. "If any of you know skilled mathematicians, bring them to the institute, and if we still don't have enough, we can recruit Muslim scholars." Official Yung Cho looked hesitant. He thought to himself, aren't they just Saracen traders? Eventually he voiced his concern. "Your Highness, I mean no offense, but if we bring in Muslims, some ministers might oppose it." But Hyang remained calm. "This is crucial to our research. If anyone objects, tell them to bring their concerns directly to me." He continued confidently. "Muslims have been present on the Korean peninsula since the Silla dynasty. Trade with them has been ongoing and even thrived during the Goryeo and Joseon periods. They excel in mathematics. They'll definitely be able to help us." Official Yi Cheon spoke up. "So, will the Applied Department just wait around until the Basic Department finishes its research?" Hyang smiled. "Let's step outside for a moment." Then Hyang and Yi Cheon walked out together. Hyang had learned that Yi Cheon was a former military officer, previously serving under the Ministry of War. That made him a perfect candidate for what Hyang had in mind. "Let's upgrade our firearms," Hyang said excitedly. Yi Cheon's eyes widened in shock. Hyang chuckled at his reaction. For a military official, there was no idea more tempting than weapons innovation. Eventually, Yi Cheon bowed his head and said, "All right, I'll get it done, no matter what it takes." "Good," Hyang nodded. "But first, we need someone who really understands firearms. Do you know anyone like that?" Yi Cheon paused to think before answering. "General Choi Hae-san. He's the weapons supervisor from the Bureau of Armaments and the son of General Choi Museon, a former Joseon military officer. He's probably working at the Ministry of Military Defense right now." Hyang's eyes lit up. "Perfect. Then let's head to the Ministry of Military Defense right away." Upon their arrival, they were greeted by an official who approached them with respect. "Does His Highness wish to speak with me?" he asked. Hyang looked at the man with eager eyes. No doubt about it. This was the former military officer and weapons expert Choi Hae-san from the Bureau of Military Supplies. At first, the Crown Prince felt a little awkward standing before General Choi. He really has an intense aura, he thought. But regaining his composure, Hyang smiled and said, "It's a pleasure to meet you. I've heard a lot about you." However, as he looked into Choi Hae-san's stern and serious expression, Hyang's confident smile started to fade a bit. This isn't looking too good," he thought. Despite his intimidating presence, Choi Hae-san wasn't nearly as scary as he seemed. He gave a warm smile and said, "Thank you, Your Highness. It's an honor to meet you." The atmosphere began to relax. General Choi politely asked, "So, what brings Your Highness to the Ministry of Military Defense today?" Hyang let out a sigh of relief, then quickly invited General Choi to sit and talk. Once seated, the Crown Prince glanced at both official Yi Cheon and General Choi before finally speaking. "I have a project. Would you two like to join me in creating something?" General Choi raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. "Creating what, exactly, Your Highness?" he asked curiously. With excitement in his voice, Hyang replied, "I want to improve our military weaponry." At the mention of weaponry, General Choi's expression grew more serious. "Improve our weapons?" he repeated, trying to grasp what the prince meant. Hyang nodded. "Exactly. We can't compare ourselves to the military power of other great dynasties. Even in close combat, Japan has already surpassed us. I'm sure you'd agree, General." General Choi fell silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Yes, that's true." Hyang continued. On top of that, our finances are in poor shape. We can't keep recruiting more soldiers. That's why the first step must be to improve the quality of our weapons. Once that's done, we can gradually build a stronger force. General Choi listened carefully, then offered his perspective. Forgive me, Your Highness, but the spears and swords of Joseon troops are already of high quality. Hyang smiled. I know, but war isn't fought with spears and swords alone, he said calmly. What I'm talking about are gunpowder-based weapons. Yi Cheon, who had been quietly listening, suddenly widened his eyes. Your Highness? Do you mean firearms and cannons? You plan to improve them? He asked in shock. Seeing the mischievous grin spread across Hyang's face, the two officials grew slightly uneasy. Could a 10-year-old boy really be thinking like this? They wondered silently. Hyang spoke up. If I already had a detailed plan, I'd explain it in full. But for now, I just want to see how effective our current cannons are. Can we arrange a demonstration? Yi Cheon hesitated slightly before responding. A demonstration like that would require permission from His Majesty. Upon hearing that, Hyang immediately replied, All right then, I'll ask Father for permission. Not long after, Hyang went to see King Sejong and expressed his request. The king raised an eyebrow. A cannon demonstration? Is that really necessary? I won't approve it if it's just for your amusement, he warned. Hyang answered confidently. It's not for fun, Father. If we want to strengthen national defense, upgrading our firearms is essential, but I haven't had the chance to inspect them closely. After hearing Hyang's reasoning, the king gave his approval. Very well. Ministry of Military Defense, prepare a demonstration of our cannons and rifles, he ordered. Suddenly, King Sejong added, Actually, why not make it bigger? Let's bring in the cavalry and other troops too, along with the cannons and rifles. Hyang grinned. I love that idea. The ministers nearby grumbled quietly at the father and son's excitement. Looks like we're not going home early today. As requested by the Crown Prince, the firearms demonstration was held 10 days later. On the day of the event, Hyang carefully observed every detail. King Sejong opened the demonstration by saying, I want to assess the condition of our troops as well. I expect your best effort today. The soldiers responded in unison. As you command! The show began with cavalry and archers displaying their skills. But something puzzled Hyang. Why are the spears shorter than I remember? He wondered. When the order was given to fire, the archers released their arrows skillfully, and the cavalry charged with enthusiasm. But something else left Hyang even more confused. Why are they pulling their horses back? Isn't that wasting all the momentum they just built up? He frowned. Cavalry units were supposed to break through enemy lines, not retreat midway through. Hyang sighed and thought to himself, Clearly, we still have a long way to go. It was finally time for the firearm and cannon demonstration. General Choi Hae-sun, dressed in a sharp military uniform and radiating authority, stood tall before the soldiers. The sight was striking. He looked like the embodiment of discipline and true military strength. Hyang stared, eyes unblinking, his breath caught in his chest from the bubbling excitement within. Now, I'll get to see for myself just how powerful our weapons really are, he thought. His eyes gleamed, and his blood raced with curiosity. But in the midst of the growing anticipation, General Choi suddenly squinted, a strange sensation creeping over him. Why does the back of my neck feel hot? He muttered. One by one, the cannons were brought in. The largest was called the Heaven Cannon, followed by the Earth Cannon, and finally, stationed at the far edge, was a handheld cannon, an improved version of the Heaven Cannon. When the order to fire was given, thunderous blasts shook the air. Projectiles launched at incredible speed, soaring high into the sky and far across the field. King Sejong watched in awe. What an incredible display of power, he exclaimed. How far is the range? A nearby minister quickly responded, Approximately 1.6 kilometers, Your Majesty. He then turned to Hyang and asked, What do you think, Crown Prince? But Hyang was lost in thought and didn't respond immediately. He stood with his head down, looking somewhat disappointed. The king had to call out to him several times before Hyang snapped out of it. Oh, yes, I think it's amazing, Father. All thanks to a great general and skilled soldiers. Choi Hae-sun smiled modestly and replied, Your Highness praises us too much. Yet Hyang still wasn't satisfied. He turned to the king with another request. Father, may I speak with the cannon operators for a moment? There are a few things I'd like to confirm. The scene shifted to the soldiers manning the cannons. As soon as they saw the Crown Prince approaching, they immediately bowed and shouted, Our respects, Your Highness. Hyang smiled, nodded, and said, Thanks to your hard work, this country can enjoy peace. I'm deeply grateful to all of you. The soldiers bowed again and replied, Your kindness is beyond measure. Suddenly, something caught Hyang's eye. I've been wondering, why do their armors all look different? The Crown Prince finally asked, Did you all provide your own armor? The soldiers answered in unison, Yes, Your Highness. Hyang nodded slowly, beginning to understand. That explains the differences. Now that I think about it, I remember reading that, in the Joseon era, soldiers had to supply their own combat gear. No wonder they look like this. For now, Hyang decided to set that issue aside. There was something more urgent at hand. Are all the cannons and handheld guns ready? He asked. General Choi immediately replied, Everything is prepared, Your Highness. He then pulled off a large cover, revealing a neatly arranged stockpile of weapons, swords, spears, and cannons. I never thought I'd see Joseon's artillery with my own eyes. The colors. They're beautiful, Yang said, visibly impressed. General Choi, puzzled by the strange expression on the prince's face, thought to himself, what exactly is the crown prince thinking? Hyang began closely inspecting the weapons. As he examined the cannons, something caught his attention. They're still using wooden cannons without reinforcements. That means the explosive power of the gunpowder isn't being fully utilized. It took a long time for reinforced cannons to become common, so I guess it makes sense they're still using older models, he thought, but suddenly his eyes narrowed. Wait, this cannon is made of wood, but it's reinforced, isn't it? He asked. General Choi nodded. The crown prince rested his chin in his hand, falling into deep thought, his face serious. There's been progress, yes, but a complete overhaul is clearly needed. The question is, where do I even begin? For now, he set aside the cannon issue and shifted his focus to the handheld guns. General Choi, I have a question. Hyang began firing off questions in quick succession. Do the Jurchen soldiers wear armor? General Choi nodded. Yes, Your Highness. There are various types, but they all wear armor, both light and heavy. The crown prince paused for a moment before asking again. If they were wearing light armor and get hit by one of these handheld guns, what would happen? Choi let out a breath before replying. I haven't seen it firsthand, but according to reports from the northern borders, a Jurchen soldier was killed from a distance of 40 paces, about 50 meters. Hyang nodded slowly. All right, that's helpful. Let's head back. As he walked, Hyang's mind was still full of questions. This is complicated. It's hard to identify the root issue. Where should I even start? Once the drills were over, King Sejong, looking satisfied, addressed the troops. You've all done well. I prepared food and drink for everyone. Enjoy it to your heart's content. Upon hearing this, the soldiers erupted in cheers. Long live His Majesty! Long live His Majesty! Long live His Majesty! But Hyang still couldn't stop thinking. Eventually, he couldn't take it anymore and burst out, This isn't right! I'm too curious! I can't hold it in! Without hesitation, he called over 2 soldiers from the artillery and firearms unit. The 2 men glanced at each other in confusion before replying, Yes, Your Highness. Hyang gave a mischievous grin. Come with me. There are a few things I want to ask. But before they left, the crown prince politely added, Sorry for pulling you away before you could join the banquet. The 2 soldiers quickly waved it off. No worries at all, Your Highness. Hyang smiled in relief. Oh, really? In that case, I'll ask as many questions as I want. Although the 2 soldiers looked enthusiastic and unfazed on the outside, inside, they were quietly crying. The crown prince began asking questions, practical ones but packed with technical detail. First of all, when using this handheld cannon, is there anything that feels inconvenient? I mean, anything uncomfortable or difficult? Don't hold back. Just be honest. The 2 soldiers didn't hesitate to respond. It's not too difficult, but there are a few issues. Hyang's expression turned serious. What kind of issues? One of the soldiers explained. Most of these handheld cannons need to be mounted on a support post to fire properly. Even the strongest artillery soldiers can only manage 2 shots before they're exhausted. The firing range and accuracy are also problems. At close range, accuracy is good, but the farther the target, the harder it is to aim precisely. Hearing that, Hyang raised his hand. May I hold it? He picked up the handheld cannon and quickly understood the issue. The center of gravity is too far forward. Is it because the weapon is too heavy? Curious, the crown prince asked. How much does this weigh? General Choi replied. Around 2.2 kilograms, Your Highness. Hyang nodded. And the length? Choi answered. It varies, Your Highness. But even the shortest ones are at least 1.2 meters long. Hyang frowned. So, the lengths aren't standardized? Choi hesitated before replying awkwardly. That depends on the measuring system used. So, yes, there are slight variations. Hyang was stunned. What? That's basically saying even the rulers are different lengths. Wasn't there already a standardized measurement system in place before production? Choi replied quietly. These are all tribute items, Your Highness. Hyang bit his lip. So the issue isn't just the weapon's balance. There's more to it. He followed up with another question. How much gunpowder is used per shot? General Choi answered. About 37.5 grams, Your Highness. The moment Hyang heard the number, he froze. He looked so shocked he nearly passed out. Seeing this, General Choi panicked. Your Highness, are you all right? Hyang scratched his head and sighed. I'm fine. It's just, that's way more gunpowder than I expected. Once all his questions were answered, the crown prince said, You're dismissed for now. General Choi Hae-san, let's go. With a bright smile, Hyang added, Great work, everyone. The 2 soldiers responded cheerfully. Thank you, Your Highness. But deep down, they were still confused. Why is the crown prince so interested in all this? He's still so young? Does he really understand, or is this just childish curiosity? Meanwhile, Hyang smiled to himself, satisfied. I finally understand where the real problems are. This video ends here, but the story isn't over yet. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next part.